This is definitely the most mocking scene in Korean film history. A male corpse was hung in the air of Seoul at 5 a.m., and the corpse was facing the gate of the Seoul police station. This was a blatant provocation to the police station. The police on the opposite side rushed to the scene, but when the police chief Kui lifted the white cloth, when he saw the corpse, he was directly stunned. Lau Kui didn't admit it, because he not only knew the man, but he also killed him. Lau Kui couldn't figure out he had already destroyed the body. Why it appeared at the police station now? Just a few days ago, Chui, who had been working in the police station for 20 years, he not only won the honorary title of good police officer, but also gained the favor of the director, and got a promotion opportunity. After learning the news, they congratulated him one after another. That day, Lau Kui partied with his colleagues until midnight. Following the principle of not driving after drinking, Kui was sent to a taxi by his colleagues. On the way, he excitedly reported the good news to his wife, and then fell asleep deeply. But when he opened his eyes again, he found that this was not the way home. He quickly asked the driver if he was going the wrong way, but the driver not only didn't respond, but instead welded the accelerator pedal. The speed instantly reached over 100. Seeing this, immediately identified himself as a police officer and stopped him. The driver still didn't stop. Obviously, the driver was targeting him. Until it rushed into the field, the taxi finally stopped. Unexpectedly, the driver was going to hack Lau Shui with a knife. Fortunately, Lau Kui had sobered up and dodged it. He asked the driver why he wanted to kill him. The driver cursed Kui for all kinds of crimes, including the wrongful convictions Kui had made, and various corruption and bribery. Although Lau Kui denied it, the driver didn't plan to let him go. He even pounced on Lau Kui even more fiercely. The two instantly engaged in a struggle. Kui was an experienced detective after all. Even though he was drunk, he was still quite agile. Soon he knocked the driver to the ground and kicked the knife far away. But the driver didn't give up. He picked up a stone and almost killed Kui, and took the opportunity to pick up the knife again to stab Lau Kui. But no one expected that during their fight, the driver unfortunately pointed the tip of the knife at himself. The driver died on the spot. Seeing the scene in front of him, Lau Kui was completely dumbfounded. He was about to take out his phone to surrender, but at this moment, the director called him. The director on the other end told Lau Kui he had arranged a meeting with the leader for him tomorrow, asking Lau Kui to perform well. The position of police chief would be his in the future. After answering the call, an evil idea sprung up in his mind, so he made a bold decision. He relied on his decades of experience in handling cases to destroy the corpse. He took out tape from the car to wipe off the fingerprints on the handle. He returned to the car carefully, wiping away any possible evidence. After finishing everything, seeing that there was no one around, he threw the body into the wilderness. But what Lau Shui didn't expect was that, but in just a few days, the body appeared at the police station again. Seeing the forensic doctor and colleagues collecting evidence, panicked Lau Kui drove to the crime scene, but found nothing here, which puzzled Lau Kui. Not long after, Brother Ma of the police team found it nearby. Found the taxi. He asked Xiao Bei and Ajun to check it. Jun found in the gap of the taxi seat found the tie clip that Lau Shui had left behind. He realized that this must have something to do with the sheriff, but he thought that in the past few years of getting along, the sheriff's character must be fine. He didn't make a sound, but put the tie clip in his pocket. When they opened the trunk, there was a lot of blood inside. After DNA comparison, it was found to be the vehicle that transported the body. The case was quickly exposed by the media, who also said it was a disgrace to the judicial system. The entire police station was instantly under pressure. The chief held a press conference immediately and set up a task force to investigate the case and solve it within 3 days. The team leader was Lau Kui, but Lau Kui was no longer interested in the case. He could only hand over the command to his deputy, Ma. Under the careful investigation of Brother Ma, the team members did find clues. After checking thousands of surveillance cameras, they finally found the taxi's final driving track. The more important clue is that they found a passenger in the back seat. The passenger was likely the murderer. After hearing this, his heart was in his throat. At the same time, the forensic doctor also made progress. They found from the victim's nails, they found the murderer's skin tissue, so they inferred that the victim must have scratched the murderer during the fight. As long as the suspect is found and compare the DNA, the case will be solved. But no one present noticed that there was a band-aid on Lau Kui's neck. To cover up, the flustered Lau Kui quickly tore off the bandage. And at this moment, Ma broke into his office with someone. Fortunately, it was just a nightmare for Lau Kui. To get rid of his suspicion, Lau Kui sneaked to the place where he got on the car. He checked quickly. He confirmed the surveillance number of the place. Then he returned to the police station pretending to inspect the work. But while the police weren't paying, he secretly took the surveillance video of his taxi. But all this was seen by Ajun across the street. But Ajun still chose to remain silent. The police compared a large number of surveillance videos. Jun soon discovered new clues, which scared Kui on the opposite side. But when Kui went to check, the video captured the suspect transporting the corpse. It was a false alarm. All the police officers immediately went out to catch the suspect. They did find the suspect in the alley. The police quickly got out of the car and chased. The suspect was very familiar with the terrain and quickly left the police behind. Lau Kui quickly asked the police to split up, but unfortunately the unlucky guy ran into Lau Kui by chance. After a chase, Lau Kui blocked the suspect in an alley. Seeing that he was about to be caught, he shouted that he was innocent. "You see, you thought you've been here? You see, you thought you've been here. And take care of me. You see, you thought you've been here? You see, you thought you had been here." Lau Kuei knew how the driver died, but he really wanted to know who was behind the scenes. But the other party said he had never seen the mastermind. Everything was communicated through text messages. Lau Kuei saw that the other party didn't seem to be lying. He had an evil thought again. He silently turned off the walkie-talkie on his waist. The suspect also understood Lau Kuei's intention, picked up a stick and prepared for the final struggle. The next second, Lau Kuei decisively pulled the trigger. The suspect died on the spot. But the moment Lau Kuei turned around, he saw Ajun right behind him. Just as Lau Kuei was thinking whether Ajun saw all this, Brother Ma came with his men. The director was very angry when he learned that the suspect was killed, but the team members all raised their hands to plead for Lau Kuei, saying that Kuei must have been forced to do so. But the director suddenly said at this time, Ma Ge immediately said, "Don't do anything to others." Everyone raised their hands. Brother Ma immediately said it would be clear after the DNA test, but the identification result will take some time. But they had already detected the same type of drug component. It's entirely possible. The two died in a drug robbery. The director thought this speculation was reasonable. Since there was video evidence, in order to close the case as soon as possible, he couldn't wait a moment. He held a press conference the next day. He announced on the spot that the suspect killed was the murderer and told the media the tragedy was caused by the two's drug use. All they need to do is wait for the DNA identification result. While everyone was waiting for the result, only Kui was not idle for a moment. He wanted to find out the mastermind behind this. Since both victims were using the same drug, Yushi Kui found the gangster who used to sell drugs. After beating the man up, he really got a clue. Because of its side effects has been eliminated, only a few people are currently using it. So based on the list provided by the man and the suspect's call records before his death, he quickly identified a well-known artist, G-Dragon. But before he could investigate further, the DNA comparison result of the suspect came out. There was no doubt that the person who was shot was not the murderer. Lau Kuei already knew that, and he was prepared to be locked up. He didn't expect that after the director scolded him, he actually put away the identification report and said that the report didn't exist, and asked Lau Kuei to make a fake report to end the case. He didn't want to be affected by this matter affect his promotion. The director's words were exactly what Lau Kuei wanted, but he didn't plan to let the person behind it go, because that person might jump out at any time and send himself to jail. So he went to the entertainment company where artist G-Dragon works, but the agent said G-Dragon hadn't come to work for a long time, because fans found out that he not only took drugs, but also a homosexual. So after Quan Zhilong knew his scandal was exposed, he chose to hide. Now no one can contact him. The progress of Lau Kuei's case also came to a standstill. On the other hand, Ajun found that a disc was missing. He went to the traffic police to make a copy. It was not a big deal. Hao Bei was the day the scene of colleagues sending Lau Kuei away by taxi, and the car was the one involved in the case. So he found Lau Kuei alone that night and gave him the surveillance disc and tie rack, saying that although he knew that the sheriff was involved, but he must have many unspeakable secrets, and expressed his understanding of Lau Kuei's difficulties, and believed that Lau Kuei would handle this matter properly. The next day, Lau Kuei sat in his car at the police station. He hesitated whether to turn himself in. Just then, the agent called him, saying he had learned that G-Dragon opened a bar, suggesting that Lau Kuei could go there to have a look. According to the address, Lau Kuei found the bar. Strangely, there was no one in the bar, but from the photos on the wall, it can be concluded the owner of the bar should be G-Dragon. A calendar on the table recorded dates and locations, attracted Lau Kuei's attention. One of them was the day he accidentally killed the driver. Lau Kuei immediately called Brother Ma in the police station, asking him to investigate if there was anything special about these dates. Sure enough, there was a discovery. The dates and locations recorded on the calendar all had murders, and all the victims were police officers. What Kui couldn't believe was that these police officers were once his teammates. This reminded Lau Kuei of a murder case 15 years ago. A murder case they were responsible for together. A disabled man killed 12 guests with poison. With the police's nearly one-year investigation, they found no clues about the suspect. Under the pressure of the public, the fat man, who was the team leader, arrested the disabled man who worked in the bar as the murderer, and paid two strangers to pretend to be witnesses. Thus, a major murder case was closed hastily. Over the past 15 years, the fat man has risen and finally became the director. Lau Kuei, who was just a small police officer at that time, became the sheriff of the criminal police team. Now Lau Kuei quickly goes back to review the case. To his surprise, the two people who recently died were actually witnesses to the case. The disabled suspect had a son, whose name was Quan Zhilong. But before Lau Kuei could find Quan Zhilong came to the police station to surrender. The police officers in the office were stunned. When Lau Kuei learned about it, he rushed to the police station. He didn't know what Quan Zhilong was up to, but this matter was definitely not that simple, because G-Dragon specifically mentioned Lau Kuei interrogated him alone and asked to turn off all monitoring equipment. After getting the director's consent, Lau Kuei turned off the monitoring. G-Dragon also directly stated his purpose. His original plan was to let the taxi driver kill Lao Kui. Unexpectedly, Lao Kui killed the driver instead. But this didn't stop the plan, because G-Dragon filmed the video of Lao Kui killing the driver. If Lao Kui didn't want the video to be released, he must help Quan Zilong kill someone. It was the fat director outside. Because it was the fat man's plan, his father was wrongly imprisoned. After Lao Kui came out, he told the director no matter how he interrogated Quan Zilong, he wouldn't say anything. Although this man is not the murderer, he couldn't let him leave easily. After returning to the office, Lao Kui struggled for a long time. He put his police badge and gun on the table and was ready to confess his crime to the director. But his secretary told him the director had already left, so he had to return. But when he passed the interrogation room, he found that G-Dragon had been released. His colleague told him that if the police detained an alien for no reason, it would definitely cause social attention. So they had to release Quan Zilong first. However, Ma had arranged Ajun to follow Quan Zilong, but Ajun lost track of G-Dragon. Lao Kui realized something was wrong. He drove to find the director. He was driving and calling the director while driving, but the phone was unanswered. When Lao Kui arrived at the director's parking lot, Quan Zilong called at this time, saying he personally put some gifts in the director's car. The director was getting into the car. Lao Kui hurried towards the director, but in the next second, G-Dragon drove away after doing all this. Meanwhile, everyone in the police station received an email. When they opened it, it was a video of Lao Kui killing the driver. Before everyone could recover, they received the news that the director was killed. Brother Ma immediately realized something was wrong. He immediately reinvestigated G-Dragon's identity. The result was beyond his expectations. It turned out that G-Dragon wasn't the son of the disabled man. His son was indeed named Quan Zilong, but not him. Brother Ma quickly called Ajun, saying there was an emergency and he needed Ajun's help. Then Ma rushed to Ajun's place. The next second, Ma pointed the gun at Ajun. It turned out that Ajun was the son of the disabled. He changed his name after being adopted later. Considering their years of working together, Ma asked him to go back to the police station with him and surrender. Unexpectedly, Ajun suddenly rushed up and tackled Ma and took away Ma's pistol. "Thank you so much." After a gunshot, the first boxer in Korea died. On the other hand, Lao Kui also found Jia Quan Zilong's bar. At this time, Jia Quan Zilong had just injected himself with a happy water. Facing Lao Kui's gun, he was not afraid at all, but proudly confessed everything. He said he was not G-Dragon. The real G-Dragon is actually Ajun, who is also his childhood sweetheart boyfriend, and also Lao Kui's proud apprentice. After that, this guy died because of that injection. Just then, Lao Kui received a call from Ajun, but his son's voice came from the other end, saying he was playing in the park with Ajun's brother. Then Ajun asked Lao Kui to go to the park now, saying he had something important to discuss with him. Facing the naked threat, Kui had no choice. When he arrived at the park, he found Ajun had been waiting for a long time, and his son was sitting in the car in the distance. Lao Kui understood for Ajun, the hatred of that year could never be let go. Kui could only repeatedly promise to punish the culprit and clear his father's name, but Ajun said he was the murderer. It turned out that Ajun was raised by his father. Although his father was a little lame and even a little stupid, but he always left the best things to himself. Until one day, father hadn't come home late, so Ajun went to the bar where his father worked, but saw his father being insulted by a group of drunk guests. They punched and kicked his father and poured garbage on his head. The young Ajun couldn't bear this humiliation, so the little Ajun went to the kitchen. He poured the HRO next to him into the wine. After the father served the wine to the guests, within 3 minutes, they started vomiting blood. Soon, they all died of poisoning. When his father saw the poison in Ajun's hand, he couldn't believe what he saw. Then Ajun desperately told the police that he was the murderer. But these people, without any evidence, let his father take the blame, and even brought 2 passers-by to give false testimony. Eventually, his father was sentenced to death. 7-year-old Ajun stood in the rain, with eyes full of grievance and resentment. Time goes back to now. The same heavy rain and the same 2 people. Lao Kui has no way out now. Colleagues all believed that Lao Kui was the murderer. Lao Kui knew he would be arrested. Ajun said that Lao Kui should kill himself to take revenge, fulfilling his promise to punish the real murderer. Anyway, he had avenged his father, and there was no meaning in living anymore. Fortunately, Lao Kui calmed down, fired 6 shots into the sky, and fired all the bullets. The scene of him being arrested by his colleagues was all seen by his son standing in the rain. In the rain. Just like G-Dragon standing in the rain back then. After seeing this scene, Ajun opposite smiling and raised his pistol. People always try to cover up the truth with lies, but they don't know that a lie requires a bigger lie to cover it up.